Plantu is one of France's best-known cartoonists, having been drawing for the national daily Le Monde for the best part of 30 years. Euronews caught up with him in Brussels, where he was promoting a documentary about political cartoonists, some of whom risk their lives to get their views across. Caricaturistes, Fantassins de la Démocratie will be out in Belgium on the 8th of October.
Que no debía tocar con la caricatura, que era el presidente de la República, al ejército y a la Virgen de Guadalupe. Esa es mi agenda de trabajo.
La libertad es un escape, la libertad es algo, un elemento absolutamente vital para la vida.
Plantu, merci d'être avec nous.
Merci de me recevoir.
Ce documentaire,
This documentary, is it the continuation of the work you started in 2006 when you founded the association Cartooning for Peace with the UN? This association now has 109 cartoonists in it, I think, and you are one of the 12 who appear in the film. How were the other 11 chosen?
Alors, j'ai laissé faire
I left the decision to the director, Stephanie Valuato, and the producer, Rado Miliano. They knew my work and wanted to highlight what we have in common, us cartoonists.
En valeur le travail de qu'est-ce qui nous unit, nous ces dessinateurs. Donc,
so they moved between an artist from Burkina like Damien Glay, or someone from the Ivory Coast, or this artist from Ramallah, a Palestinian. It wasn't a case of an in-club of cartoonists who all think the same way. No, they think freely, like journalists. So it should resonate with your journalists, and especially with citizens of the planet, who hear all the debates on subjects which are touched on in the film Caricaturistes, Fantassins de la Démocratie.
The trailer features a Syrian cartoonist who had his fingers broken. Cartooning for Peace is a network of artists highlighting their work, but can it protect them?
When the Syrian cartoonist Ferza was tortured, they put a plastic bag over his head and systematically broke all his fingers. He was in plaster for months. Obviously, as we see in the film, we have the means to make this known. And when he comes to Europe or elsewhere and he takes part in debates, it really spotlights his resistance work. The word fantassin, soldier, in the title reflects that.
Moving on to a very current issue in the news, which is in all our thoughts, the Islamic State. Here is a cartoon you drew recently. We see the leader of a petrol-rich monarchy tossing dollars at Obama to pay for his coalition against the jihadist group. We understand that you're denouncing a sort of hypocrisy, but who are the hypocrites? The Gulf monarchies like Saudi Arabia, who have sponsored the Salafi movement for years, or the West, which has looked the other way?
These questions have exactly the answers you expect. It's true that the advantage of working for Le Monde is that I can pick up my phone and say to my editor, I'm fed up with the Arab League. Yet again, we're going to say that the Americans are intervening in Arab countries, in Iraq, and as for them, what are they doing? They're sleeping. What are they doing? The guy asleep on the cushions, he has to understand that 3/4 of the world's Muslims are moderates. And what's he doing? Sometimes he hangs out with guys who are a little less moderate, and suddenly Obama picks up his phone and says, hey, it would be good if you come and help us in Iraq. But the guy, he's juggling 3 lots of people. But okay, let's go for your Muslim brothers.
Here's another of your cartoons on another serious subject, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. This epidemic started at the beginning of the year, and it's only now that the international community is properly mobilizing. Is that because the outbreak is in Africa that we've taken so long to react?
Of course, that's why at Cartooning for Peace we are in touch with all the cartoonists in sub-Saharan Africa, because they give out enormous amounts of information. Of course, there is political drawing and drawing on the web, in the newspapers, and then all the drawings by artists working for health organizations, for UNICEF, the UN, etc., who try to promote the work of these wonderful people who are in contact with Africans.
qui sont au contact avec les Africains.
Le prochain dessin, j'aimerais.
And can you explain this next drawing? I'll just say in 2 words that it's about Ukraine and perhaps about the way Europeans look at what's happening.
Moi, je crois qu'en tant qu'Européens,
I think that as Europeans, we have something to say about Kiev, about Ukrainians. But also, I have to say, you know, a while back they caught on to things and then they said, we're going to ban speaking Russian. Me, I thought they were mad. Banning Russian? And that's just what the others were waiting for. And bam! And that's why I drew them a bit alike. Because I think there are great people standing right beside people who love Russian culture and the Russian language in Ukraine. There are great people in the Kiev side who are trying to push a lovely idea of Ukrainian democracy. And then there are idiots on both sides. And I think that sometimes we Europeans have piled up with people who only want one thing: to flatten the Russians. But I don't want to do that at all. I don't like Putin. I don't like his politics. But at the same time, we've made fools of the Russians several times. We made them swallow a lot in Libya when we intervened. And so you have to understand how the Russians think, and sometimes we fall into clichés.
And we can't not talk about the EU, which you've often attacked. You did a drawing about it in 2001, so 13 years later, is the EU still a snail?
Yes, it is, absolutely. And, okay, now there are 28 member states, and since 1945, there's been no war between us. And perhaps that's because we have this thing called the European Community. Now it's called the EU, and that's the reason I go on taunting the European Commission. And I'm working closely with European leaders so that in 2 years, and I think this is really worthwhile, we're going to have a meetup of 28 cartoonists from all the 28 member states. Because it's true that we have to tease European leaders, and it's also true that we have lots to say about the why, how and how much we love Europe despite it all.
On a beaucoup de choses à dire, pourquoi et comment et combien on aime l'Europe malgré tout.
Plantu, ce sera le mot
And Plantu will leave you with the last word.
Merci beaucoup.